I was pretty tough on Roku's first Pro Series TV, and well, Roku told me that they listened, charted out a bunch of changes and improvements, and implemented them into the new Roku Pro Series TV. Kind of hard not to feel like this TV was made for me, so stakes are kind of high. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and today we're going to dig into the new Roku Pro Series TV. Now, let's back up a second. Did I just say that Roku made this TV for me? Well, no, that's not what I said, and that's not really what I meant either. I just know that Roku really did pay attention to that previous review, and they worked hard to make this TV the one that they thought a pro would enjoy. And look, that was a tough review for me to put out there because I like the folks at Roku. I know people there, and I know they are putting their hearts and souls into this stuff. They really are. So to deliver some tough news to them, even if it's in a velvet glove, that iron fist tends to hurt when it hits you. And I mean, that was tough for me. So this TV, man, going into it feels like even higher stakes to me. But I've got good news. I mean, actually, I've got some pretty great news. I lived with this TV in my bedroom, where I've been watching a lot of my TV lately, for almost a solid month, I think. This is the longest I've spent using a TV as my daily driver, I think. The most hours I've spent watching a review sample outside of some of Sony's OLEDs I own. And I gotta tell you, I freaking enjoyed every single minute of it. I'll go ahead and tease something for you here. This is the best sounding LCD TV that I've tested in I don't know how many years. I don't know how they did it, but my respect for Roku's audio chops just went through the roof. And that's not the last bit of praise I have to offer for this TV because, well, if Roku's mission is to deliver delight to its customers, then this TV excels at exactly that. Because I feel pretty freaking delighted having enjoyed this TV for the past few weeks. Now, there are some issues you need to know about, so stick around. But I'd be surprised if you weren't at least a little bit eager to check this TV out for yourself by the time I'm done with this review. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through what I experienced when I set up this TV, and that starts with putting in the legs wherein we run into delight number 1. This is a tool-free process, folks. The legs can be set up a little bit higher to accommodate a soundbar, or you can get a lower slung vibe. That kind of flexibility is increasingly common now. But what is not common is having these. I'll call them screw wheels. They easily attach the legs. No finding screws, dropping them, fiddling with a screwdriver. All that is replaced with these integrated knobs. Knobs! That was the word I was looking for, which kind of makes me look like a knob, I guess. Shut your mouth. Back to these sexy legs. I got a kick out of those, and you know why else you won't be running to the garage or the junk drawer? You won't need to grab any AA or AAA batteries either because the remote is USB-C rechargeable. Now, I know some of you out there are not down with the non-user replaceable battery thing, and I get that. You are concerned that once the built-in, presumably lithium-ion cell goes bad, then the remote is trash and you'll need to replace a potentially out-of-production remote instead of just replacing batteries. But may I rather confidently suggest that this TV will be out of service long before the remote's rechargeable cell goes bad, based on the notion that lithium-based cells generally degrade at about 1% to 2% capacity per year. And at that rate, it's going to be an easy 10 years before the capacity goes down by 20%. And even then, it's still got more than enough juice to keep this remote working. I will say, though, that it might consume batteries a bit faster with this always listening remote voice switch turned on. Dang it, I didn't mean to get to the remote so fast. There's more on the back of the TV, but look, since we're here, see this little rocket ship button? That's your invitation to Roku's quick launch bar, which I'll cover a little bit more shortly. The remote also has a remote finder chime built in, which I've had to use twice now. Thanks very much. Oh, and the volume and mute buttons are on the side if you aren't familiar with how Roku rolls. Speaking of rolling, the remote doesn't roll over, thankfully. Okay, back to the back of the TV. You know how I often complain about cable management, be it nearly absent or just inadequate? Well, check out how Roku is doing the cable management here with these integrated Velcro. Sorry, I don't know if it's Velcro brand or not, but it's hook and loop, okay? And this is definitely delight number 2 for me. I think this is great. While we're back here, peep these little bass transducers, because we'll be talking about those a little later in this review, or at least what they do. Finally, if you're wondering what all these pockets are all about, these sort of indentations on the back, they are here to allow a flush mount to the wall using Roku's own mounting kit. Now, you don't have to use Roku's mounting kit, but how flush you get this TV with an aftermarket kit might vary. One thing this TV is not trying to be is particularly thin in its profile. And that's pretty common for TVs that have aggressive mini LED backlight systems, as the Roku Pro Series here does. That's one big upgrade actually over the prior Pro Series. The mini LED backlight system with its thousands of mini LEDs and quantum dots for enhanced color performance. That said, with Hisense integrating full array local dimming mini LED backlighting as far down as its U6 series, the Roku Pro Series pretty much had to have mini LED this year. So glad to see it, but I'm gonna stop short of patting Roku on the back for this one. Also, although I didn't take the time to have Roku confirm this, I do suspect this TV uses a VA panel based purely on its performance, which for you non-TV panel nerds out there means that the black levels and contrast on this TV are gonna be pretty impressive, but that contrast and color saturation is gonna take a hit when you move off to the side. So just understand though that this is pretty common with LCD TVs at this price tier. By the way, this display can do HDR10, HDR10 Plus, HLG, and Dolby Vision flavors of HDR. While we're talking about the panel, I have to point out that with certain test slides that we might use here, you'll see some vertical banding on this panel. Now, if you aren't aware, the panel lottery is a thing. So sometimes you're gonna get something perfect, sometimes you're gonna get something not perfect, sometimes something in between. This kind of effect can be damage in shipping, or it can come from the factory this way. At any rate, it happens sometimes. There isn't a single brand of TV that I've reviewed where this hasn't happened at least once. I bring it up because it's something everyone should be aware of when buying a TV. Sometimes panel uniformity can be off, and you have to decide whether or not you're going to get a replacement unit. I will say it's exceedingly rare to have trouble twice in a row. In fact, Roku offered to send me another unit, and I told them, you know what, don't bother, because it's probably going to be perfect. So I said, don't bother. This just isn't bad enough to warrant the hassle. Now, for the Roku interface, if you followed me for a while, you know that I've said on more than one occasion that I felt like it was time for Roku OS to get a bit of a facelift. And it has. Not a complete redesign or face swap, but a tightening and reimagining of certain sections. And that is a good thing, because I hear time and time again that Roku remains the most approachable and accessible smart TV OS that you can use, and Roku definitely doesn't want to lose that. But more than it just being super easy and fast to get to what you want to stream, I just love all the customization that you get with Roku. Like, I can choose my preferred picture modes and assign them per input from a single page here. Turn on the Dolby Vision notification or customize the game mode notification. There are similar settings in the audio menu, like this one for Dolby Atmos notification. And it does support both Dolby and DTS pass-through, by the way. Even the CEC section is customizable, which I'm gonna chalk all that up to delight number 4. And I'm gonna quickly follow up now with delight number 5. And maybe, this is a uniquely me thing, but I often sit or bump or roll over onto the remote, which somehow invariably means I'm gonna press a streaming hotkey for a streaming service other than the one that I'm busy watching. So here's the magic. Rather than just suddenly getting whisked away to Disney Plus while I'm in the middle of watching Stranger Things on Netflix, the Roku OS asks me if I actually wanted to switch streaming services first. That's a really nice touch right there, I gotta say. Okay, now we are almost to the picture quality deep dive, but as promised, I have to comment on the sound, and while I'll admit that the sound quality changed a bit from the bedroom to the studio living room here, I still think this is one of the finest sounding 55 to 85 inch LCD TVs that I've used in quite some time. I think part of it has to do with Roku's tuning. The other part has to do with smart decision making, like not turning on virtual surround sound unless the TV sees a Dolby Atmos audio signal. It helps with clarity. It's more than just deep bass output, although I'm telling you, you're gonna be shocked at how big this TV sounds. It's that it doesn't sound honky or whiny or thin, or even like the speakers are actually firing at the floor, even though they are. It's just a solid sounding TV with impressive surround effects, and I really appreciate that it's not likely to cause families to go, huh? What do they say? Although it will do captions only on replay if you set it to do that. Okay, now we have come to a section of my TV reviews that I like to call Deez Nits, in which we act a lot less juvenile than we sound and dig into some of the measurements that we get from this TV. Now, if that sounds a bit too nerdy for you, skip ahead using the chapter links down in the description. Okay, so out of the box, the Roku Pro Series is set to its most automatic mode, right? It's called Smart Picture Max, which for a while, for me, in a dark room and with TV content, 30 FPS or so, worked really well. It didn't aggressively apply motion smoothing, but as soon as it detected 24 FPS content, movie stuff, it got heavy-handed with the motion smoothing. And in rooms with cool color temperature light, it got aggressively cold in its own color temperature. So eventually I just had to take control, like I do with most TVs. I was, however, impressed with how it handled white balance, gamma, and color temperature using its built-in sensor and algorithm in dimmer environments. In other words, it defaults to something a little bit more accurate in dimmer environments, which is kind of what you want. Okay, guys, so I just got done measuring the Roku Pro Series TV here. Glad I spent a lot of time watching it before I did any measurement. Now, I do not have a Spectro right now, so I can only trust my unprofiled C6 so much. Just want to be transparent about that. However, I tried a bunch of different profiles. I got basically the same results across all of them. We can easily paint with some broad strokes here. So generally speaking, the white point in the TV is a little heavy on blue. It's a little cool. I've certainly seen worse, but I have been seeing better out of some of the competition. TCL and Hisense had a slightly tighter white balance out of the box compared to the Roku Pro Series here, specifically the U7 and the QM7K. I mean, the white balance is not awful though. We're talking about like a delta E of somewhere between 4 and 5, all right? So indivisible territory, but not like wildly out of whack. When it's in its darkest mode, it's down at around 120 nits, which is, you know, technically what you would want for SDR. In its brightest mode for SDR, I got about 640 nits, so give or take about 50 on that, I would say. In HDR, we saw peaks up to about 1600 nits using my particular meter and setup here. 100%. Full white window was in the 7 to 740 neighborhood. So very bright in HDR and SDR, frankly. The only accuracy to be had in HDR is for everything to be maxed out. So you need to have the TV on brightest with, if you're in dark HDR, I should say, where you get a warmer color temperature, you need the quick setting to be brightest and then the backlight all the way up at 100. Otherwise, it way undertracks the EOTF, although I will say it does that very consistently. Color accuracy in HDR is totally decent, totally decent. Nothing that's gonna make you go, hey, that doesn't look right. Which I think is why I enjoyed watching this TV, generally speaking. It doesn't do anything egregiously poorly. I will say also, because I don't cover this in the next picture quality section, that it seems like I'm getting better backlight behavior than some others that have reviewed this TV. I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot. Look, I watched a lot of Star Trek Next Generation in my bedroom. Old school, right? But you also know it's pillar boxed, right? So it's got to activate just the backlights in the center of the screen, and then also it's got to do all the star field, right? And what I'm saying is that it effectively mitigated all the blooming around the stars in the star field. It kept decent black levels when the ship would fly across the screen. You didn't see a big halo or bloom going along with it. The action on the backlight is also snappy. So I got really good results. And even when I step well off axis, which is where you can normally expose the flaws of the backlighting system while doing tests on this TV, even then, it's not blatantly obvious. I think the backlighting system on this TV is top notch, which is why I think I'm seeing such beautiful even lighting in SDR and HDR, as well as pretty specular highlights. And generally, it's tracking the EOTF well enough. It's not way out of whack. And like I said, I can only trust my meter so much right now. So very much in tolerance and very much in competition with the Hisense and the TCL, although in a few small areas, not quite as accurate. I'd like to see that white point be a little bit warmer, not quite as blue. But again, even that's not egregiously bad on this particular TV. So all things told, very much in there with the competition at its price point. Moving forward though, I picked movie mode and stuck with it. And I was happy with that, using 50% backlight and the TV set to brightest most of the time during the day and normal in the evening, which led to brighter SDR picture quality across the board. I gotta say, I do like the quick brightness access that Roku puts here, but I sometimes wonder if it might confuse tinkerers who will also discover the backlight setting. Now in that movie mode, colors appeared realistic and natural. Skin tones looked right to me the entire time I watched this TV. It's just, this is a very high quality TV that's got a great way of rendering color, contrast, and detail. It doesn't try to over sharpen anything when it's upscaling. It never loses control of what it's doing. It never drops frames while streaming. Like, it doesn't fall into any real holes, save perhaps one. I did see some motion stutter and judder in very slow pans. This is not unusual, but it stuck out to me a little more than usual on this TV for some reason. And the lowest motion smoothing setting was just more aggressive than I like to deal with. Too much soap opera effect. Action clarity setting didn't do the trick for 24 FPS stuff, but I do think it should help with sports. As for the other picture modes, some of them looked a little bright and blown out to me. That's kind of true with all TVs, but maybe a little extra, especially so here. That movie mode though, it looks good. So here's the deal. This TV goes against the Hisense U7 and TCL QM7K from a price standpoint, and it's extremely competitive from a picture performance standpoint as well with those aforementioned TVs. What it does that Hisense and TCL don't do at the same price or even more is bring the Roku TV experience, which ranges just the Roku operating system experience. You can get that in the Hisense U6. No, Roku brings the sound, the simplicity in setup, and the smart touches needed to make its TV stand out in a really crowded arena. Now, I often judge a TV by whether I would give it to a friend or family member. And the answer here is yes. I'd for sure give this to friends and family. This is a high quality TV that's more approachable than its Google TV competition, but looks just as good, and in some regards, better. Something about the color on this TV, especially in SDR. Moreover, I just enjoyed the TV a lot. I got the 5 delights out of it, and at least that many, and I repeatedly was reminded about how this TV is just special. You know, when Roku first announced that it was going to make its own TVs, I was confused. When I saw the first Pro Series, I was a little worried. Now I think it's time we take Roku seriously, because if their second edition looks this great, I can only imagine what's coming next. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about this TV down in the comments. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, flick that hype button, whatever you like to do. Do the YouTube thing, help the channel out. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, take care of yourselves.